for putting that picture up. That's so beautiful.
All various comments.
Once I put his glasses on, he looked so much better. He didn't have his glasses on. I had his glasses. I put his glasses on.
Come and sit in the chairs. Everyone should sit down. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom.
Lifetimes.
Meal and free.
It's 90.
Can I ask everybody to please put your cell phones to silent mode at this time? The funeral service is being conducted by Rabbi Stephen Stark Lowenstein, and there's 7 devices currently online with us as well. So, yeah, people here you many people watch.
Thank you for being on the live stream. Thank you for being here. I hope you can hear me. Give a thumbs up if you can, or let us know that you can hear me.
11 devices.
We are gathered here with family. The first thing we do is we make a small little tear in a ribbon to remind us of our hearts that are torn. Only direct mourners are obligated to wear a Kriya ribbon. Those are children, spouses, siblings, and parents. So the 2 of you, we make this small little. For our hearts that are torn, we perform this act of Kriya. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Dayan Hamet. We praise you, our God. Dayan Hamet, the judge of truth. For it's God's judgment that has taken him. And we accept that. Death has taken our beloved Bert. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lem. Their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow may they find the presence of loving friend. Hear them, O God, be with them. For Bert's love that united us in life which death cannot sever. For his companionship that we shared along life's path which now continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of his heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious, precious remembrance. For all these and more we give our thanks to God. In this time of grief we listen to the voice of our sacred scripture that brings us the ever new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator in joys and sorrow, in light as in darkness, in life and in death. We extend our deepest condolences to Paul on live stream. Thank you for being with us. We're sorry you can't be here, understanding that it's difficult to travel at this time, and we send complete healing to you, to Erica and Larry, to Marcia and Jay, and of course, to the late Fanny of blessed memory. To grandchildren, Ricky and Joanna, Drew, Laura, and Tori. To Sister Geraldine and Jay, a dear friend to many at Brookdale, family, cousins, relatives, friends, all who were touched by his kindness, by his goodness, by his love. Psalm 121. Esai and I ha'ari me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. We offer together the 23rd Psalm, reminding us that we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. We're not always in the valley. We don't remain there forever. We walk through the valley. And so we join together in the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For he shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. At this hour, the blessed presence of family and friends brings comfort and strength. It says to us, be sure that love, the spring of life, abides. May all who mourn take heart as they remember the goodness they've given and received. And when the days of their mourning are ended, may the memory of their loved ones truly be a blessing. On the front of the service supplement, two things jump out. The first is date of birth, October 23rd, 1927, and date of death, December 8th, 2023. December 8th, the 25th day of the Hebrew month of Kislev, the day of Hanukkah, a celebration of light. You know, the date of birth isn't important, the date of death isn't important, but it's that small little dash between the two that really tells what a life is all about. Linda Ellis writes a beautiful poem called The Dash, where she says, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of his friend. He referred to the dates on his tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of his birth and spoke the following date with years. But he said what mattered most was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time he spent alive on earth, and now only how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left. It can still be rearranged. If we can just slow down enough to consider what is true and what is real, and always try to understand the way that other people feel, and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that that special dash might only last a while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spend your dash? The dash for Burt Young is 96 years, 1927 to 2023. 96 is an amazing amount of time. But we measure lives not in time but in grace, and the joy with which they live and the love that they leave behind. Burt leaves love behind with those of you on live stream and those of you who are here. Burt leaves love behind by the way he lived, by the way he loved and laughed. The second thing on the front of the service supplement is that great picture. That's a great picture. Here's a man who really defines what the Talmud describes as Miyashir, who is rich. The rabbis of the Talmud talk about it for a few pages, and they come up with the answer, Miyashir, who is rich. And the rabbis agree, and it takes a lot for rabbis to agree, but they agree the person who is rich. It's that picture that I love. And so as a rabbi, I often quote theologians. A theologian is someone who studies religion, someone who's smart and knowledgeable. So the theologian that I'd like to quote are the great theologians Simon and Garfunkel. Okay? And so the reason I call them theologians is because sometimes music can represent exactly what we need to say. And they wrote a song, a simple song, probably the shortest song that they wrote, called Bookends. And I love the title because that's exactly what a funeral is. It's a bookend. It's a bookend at the end of a life, but it sums up that life. And so today really is a bookend. For you now to begin a new chapter, kind of a new shelf where the books, where the bookend stops, and then the new memories begin. And in their beautiful song, Bookends, they wrote, time it was and what a time it was. A time of innocence, a time of confidences. Long ago it must be, I have a photograph. Preserve your memories. They're all that's left you. Is because I really do deliverances. We keep the people that we love alive in our hearts. They died physically on December 25th. Kislev of 25th Kislev, December 8th. But now they live inside, so we preserve our memories. And those of you on live stream, those of you here are the people with the greatest memories. So Erica, I'm going to begin with you. I'm going to invite you to come forward. I want you to speak into the microphone because maybe that'll help the people on live stream.
The meeting with Rabbi Steve, I didn't know what to expect, but I found it to be quite peaceful for me because he asked a question, what will you miss? And I remembered something Rabbi Steve once said, that your friends are your memory keepers. It was at another funeral, and he had some creativity to him. And I have learned that there's always a creative way to get a job done. Lesson 1, yard work. Bert bought 4 rakes, 1 each for his 4 children, and our dog Poppy. He suggested we go jump in the leaves off the swing set with the dog. How fun it would be. We had a massive elm tree in the backyard, and it dropped so many leaves, we raked massive leaf piles, and we had a blast. But then he had us bag up our mess. He never had to hire a landscaper. When my boys were old, I bought them each a red snow shovel and suggested we take the dog out and shovel the snow from the driveway into snow forts. I never had to hire a snowplow. Lesson 2, teaching responsibility to your children with allowance. Bert brought home 1,000 of his price books with errors and paid us 1 cent per sticker to place over the errors in his price lists from work. We had little fingers, worked overtime, and no one reported him for child labor. We learned about earning our allowance and hard work and commitment. I paid Ricky $1 allowance to babysit Drew, and Drew $1 to listen to Ricky. And one of the best lessons I learned is the things we do for our children. Bert brought home wire from his warehouse at Capital Hardware, and we made dippity glass flowers together one night for over 3 hours. And you're dipping colored wire into colored plastics and wiring, and we made irises together and roses together. And in the morning, he took me to his warehouse to sell my artwork. I was 11 or 12 and couldn't believe that I had sold every flower. Everyone bought one. Everyone thanked me. And I felt so proud. Weeks later, we went to my grandparents, and I fell upon 30 flowers in the closet. My grandfather gave every employee $1 and told them to buy my flowers. Sweet memory of Bert. He lived at Brookdale for 15 years. He had an empty freezer in his apartment and would not let us bring him ice cream to put in his freezer because he liked to sneak down at night to Brookdale's freezers to get his ice cream. Bert was the ice cream caper of Brookdale. So, if any of you believe in ghosts and you see a 96-year-old man eating ice cream in your kitchen at midnight, don't worry. It's just Bert. Sit down, have a scoop of ice cream with him. Who knows? We might learn something.
It could be Jay.
Thank you.
Marsha, I invite you to come forward.
I love that. That was great. That was perfect. It put me right back in the yard, and it put me back in all the wonderful places in the factory, and that was so funny. And it's true, he wouldn't let us bring him ice cream. I'd be like, Dad, I'm gonna bring you ice cream for your pleasure. No. He loved to steal the ice cream. And they would threaten to charge him for it, and he'd be like, I'm gonna get it for free. Anyways, so my father was very content to sit at a table for hours just balancing his books. He loved playing with numbers. He would put all his bills and his bank accounts cataloged into notebooks and little folders, and I could just see him sitting there for hours just with his numbers. He lived with us for about 6 months when Tori was about two, and Grandpa, as we called him, would sit at the kitchen table sometimes from 7:30 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, just playing with his numbers, reading the daily newspaper, playing Sudoku, drinking coffee, and eating coffee cake. He especially loved when I would get him the fruit flavored cheesecakes and the Danish from the Deerfield Bakery. That was always a nice treat for him. When Tori would come down for breakfast, we would sit her down with Grandpa at the table in her little high chair. And Tori was never a big eater. She even looked a little malnourished as a kid. We would do anything to get her to eat. She just didn't like to eat, but she liked sweets. She always liked sweets. I'd say, would you eat some eggs for breakfast? No. Would you like a bagel? No. Would you like some cereal? No. So one day I said, okay, well, what will you eat? And she looked at me and she said, Papa's cake. Well, little did I know, during her breakfast every day, he was slipping her some of his coffee cake, and she was just eating it all up. So to this day, Tori often says, hey, are you going to the store? Can you pick up some Papa's cake? Tori, just so you know, for a reference, the Papa's cake is a raspberry cheese Danish that is available at most grocery stores. It's got, and that's why you like cheesecake so much now. When my dad moved to Vernon Hills, I would try to make regular visits to him. And if there was time, I would take a different route and pass the Deerfield Bakery so that I could pick up his fruit-filled cheesecake and bring it to him. It always brought a smile to his face. He'd be like beaming when I'd show up with the cake. I learned he was bringing it down to his table to share with all his friends as a treat. He'd bring it down a little bit. He wouldn't bring the whole thing. He'd portion it out, and he'd bring it down for dinner, or he'd bring it down for breakfast, or he'd bring it down when they were just having coffee. One day I got a complaint call. The people at the table are getting really greedy, and there's not enough coffee cake left for me. I need another one. Well, I learned over time that those coffee cakes represented a whole lot more than just a yummy treat. They let the people know where he lived that he had visitors. He was loved by his family. And that's what the coffee cake represented to him and why he asked me to bring it all the time. About 6 years ago, there was a shift and he seemed a little disinterested in my coffee cake. And I was like, I think he's aggravated at me because we won't let him drive anymore. And then I learned he had a new passion. They were called Aunt Erica's chocolate chip cookies. Well, when he gave up his car and he stopped driving, he had a hard time getting his medication from the Walgreens. So he started bringing the chocolate chip cookies down that Erica was baking for him to the table instead of my coffee cake. In exchange for favors, he would pay with cookies. If somebody would go to Walgreens for him, he'd give them some cookies. If somebody would go pick something up at the tailor, he'd give them some cookies. Well, then about 2 years ago, the man who used to pick up all his medicine, Leroy, said he wasn't going to get his medicine unless he had his own supply of fresh chocolate chip cookies. So Erica suddenly became his full-time baker. Erica, the good news, bad news is, that you're going to have a little break in the bakery, and you're going to save a lot of money on chocolate chips and gas, driving out to Dad his chocolate chip cookies for Leroy and his friends. Unfortunately, we don't have Dad waiting for us to bring him his little treats, but we'll think about it all the time, every time we have the cookies. And now my family demands the same cookies, and I will do favors for you too. So to this day, every time I walk in a grocery store and I go down the pastry aisle and I see the fruit cheesecakes, I always silently say to myself, I wonder if we need any Papa's cake in the house. And that's the memory that I will always carry with me.
Hi everyone, I'm Ricky, Grandpa Kurt's oldest grandchild. I will always remember Grandpa Kurt coming over and building 3D puzzles with me in the living room on the floor. We built the Taj Mahal in Empire State Building. This was pretty cool for me at that age because I've never built anything that big before. Once I was older, he would always say, "Did you find someone to take care of you?" And I always thought he was kidding. Just a fun banter. In hindsight, what I think he was trying to say was, find someone who loves you. He knew love and he knew loss. I'd like to think he was at least trying to point us in some direction. We love you, Grandpa Bert, and we will miss you.
Anyone else want to share a memory? Anyone else want to share a story? Bert was a loving grandfather, a good friend to so many at Brookdale, a man who always loved a good celebration. A man who was never athletic but loved to watch sports. He especially loved Marcia's steaks and Erica's cookies. Where do you want to go for dinner, Dad? Can we go to Marcia's? Can she make steak? Here was a man with an amazing math mind, who became very good at bridge, a grandmaster, who was great at Sudoku, who loved the Cubs, who loved the Bears, but who really loved Star Trek. A product of his generation, a simple man, old school, who never stopped being old school. That was Bert. Born to Della and Walter, Walter was an immigrant to this country, and his grandfather was a cantor in the old country. He was blessed with a sister, Geraldine. Walter owned a hardware company. Della was amazing. She did everything. They lived in Rogers Park. He went to Senn and graduated from U of I with honors. A card-carrying member of Phi Beta Kappa, which is the highest academic honor that anyone can achieve. He was also a fraternity brother of Hugh Hefner's, which probably isn't the highest honor that anyone could achieve, but it sure must have been fun. Bert met your mom, Lori, at a dance and loved her. Blessed with Franny of blessed memory, and Paul, Erica, and Marcia. They started a great family. They led a great life. And when Lori died young, Della stepped in. You went there every Sunday. You still cook with her recipes. She helped her son in so many ways. She was the pillar of the family. She did everything. How special that Bert died on her birthday. Bert worked hard and then retired young. He loved companionship. Find someone to love you. He always wanted to take care of the women in his life and ultimately have them take care of him. He always had funny jokes. You enjoyed being in his company. And everyone at Brookdale loved him, except maybe the people who watched the kitchen and knew that he was stealing ice cream. He always loved dogs and animals. He was crazy about his grandchildren, Ricky and Drew, Laura and Tori. I love that you often went to Shabbat services at B'nai Torah when you were growing up. And as your family was filmed on the news for Passover many years ago, Bert wouldn't do it until he was wearing a kippah. He knew that Judaism was important. Not that he was overly religious, but he certainly was spiritual. A man who loved cruises and went on them often, who played bridge in a bridge group at Brookdale, who was always good in math but never learned new math. He wanted his children and now his children's children to carry on traditions. He developed a love of family. Everyone had their roles. He brought up the chairs for his mom when he was young, so you kids should bring up the chairs for your moms. His grandkids truly loved him. Fran loved Bert as well, accepted him for who he is, and now they're buried next to each other. Paul, we're sending you lots of good thoughts and healing. We know it's hard to be far away. You loved your dad and was always there for him as well. I love that he taught his children to be independent. You all learned about hard work and not to rely on anyone else except yourself. Burton knew the importance of education and wanted all of you to succeed. He was a man of great integrity, a man who knew his own limitations, who always had a joke to tell, a man who in many ways, because his parents did so much for him, he never had to grow up. And he kind of liked that. And I loved that he'd check in with his son-in-laws, with Jay and Larry. He wanted to know how everyone was doing. He was there with you for the holidays, and you were there as great son-in-laws and as great children and as wonderful grandchildren. He needed all of you in his life. He wanted to be part of yours. So here we are in the middle of the holiday of Hanukkah. He died during Hanukkah. You'll remember him every year during Hanukkah. What I love about the holiday of Hanukkah isn't gifts. It's actually lighting the candles. You know, there's one candle on the menorah that helps all the other candles. You need the one candle in the middle to light the other candles. We call it the shamash, the helper candle. And when that candle lights the other candles, an amazing thing happens. Watch it. The candle, the shamash doesn't lose its light, but a brighter light, a bigger light shines when the one candle lights the fourth day, then the third day, then the second day, and then the first day. You can't have a menorah without a shamash. And in many ways, you can't have a family without a patriarch. He was, in his own way, that shamash that lit the other candles, diminishing his light just a little bit, but adding to your light. And as your menorah grows, as beautiful individuals get added to that menorah, you're going to pass on that light, the light that he loved, the light that he shared in the best way that he could, in the simple way that he could. You're going to pass that light on, and you're going to share that light. Peter Yarrow said, "Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let Bert's light ever go out. May he rest in peace." El Malay Rachamim, God full of compassion, Shokeh Bamramin, Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Ashrina, In Kedoshim Teharim Kazohar Harakia Mazirin, Et Nishmat Burton Young, Shalach Olamo. God full of compassion, dwelling in the heights and the depths, grant perfect rest and looks to our loved one, to Bert who has entered eternity. May he find refuge forever under the shadow of God's wings. May his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Amen. And as the casket gets lowered to its final resting place, we say Kaddish in his honor and in his memory. Kadash Shemei Rabbah. Ve'almad Divrach Harutei ve'amlich Malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei l'kol Beit Yisrael. V'agalav Bizman Kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mavarach le'olam Momel Maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitruman v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei dekusha brichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Source of peace and peace to all who mourn, and comfort all who are bereaved, and let us say, Israel, v'yimru, yimru, Amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al Israel. Go your way, for God has called you. Go your way. May God be with you. May righteousness go before you, and the glory of God receive you. Makom Yenachem Etchem B'Tokshar Avilei Tzion V'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you among all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Let us say amen. Amen. Please be seated. It takes just a few moments for the vault lid to be placed upon the casket, sealing it here. The first earth that is added is earth from the land of Israel. Tradition says that we as Jews believe that the Messiah has not arrived yet. But we work and pray and we hope for the day that the Messiah does arrive. And when that does happen, there won't be wars in the Middle East. There won't be COVID and sickness, dementia. There won't be the ills of society that we know. All will be eaten once again. Tradition says that that'll happen first at the Mount of Olives, that a white donkey will arrive at the top of the Mount of Olives. It'll walk down it'll carry a person down the Mount of Olives. The Golden Gate of Jerusalem will open up, and all of the dead will come back to life. People pay a lot of money to be buried on the Mount of Olives so that they can have front row seats for that moment. But since everyone can't be buried in the Mount of Olives, we add a little earth from the Mount of Olives to every burial outside the land of Israel, hoping and praying for a world at peace, which is what our world needs now more than ever. The beautiful words of Rabbi Alvin Fine: birth is a beginning and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going and growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weak to strength and strength to weakness and often back again, from offense to forgiveness and loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to looking backwards or ahead. We see that victory lies not in some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. I came across a beautiful poem by Padraig Ó Tuama, a podcaster and an Irish poet, on the On Being series on NPR. And I was struck by the poem that Padraig wrote called The Facts of Life. I've never used it for a funeral, but it seems so appropriate. The facts of life: that you were born and that you will die. That you will sometimes love enough and sometimes not. That you will lie if only to yourself. That you will get tired. That you will learn most from the situations you did not choose. That there will be some things that move you more than you can ever say. That you will live. That you must be loved. That you will avoid questions most urgently in need of your attention. That you began as the fusion of two people who were once strangers and may well still be. That life isn't fair. That life is sometimes good, and sometimes even better than good. That life is often not so good. That life is real. And if you can survive it, well, survive it well, with love and art and meaning given, where meaning's scarce. That you will learn to live with regret, that you will learn to live with respect. That the structures that constrict you may not permanently be constraining. That you will probably be okay. That you must accept change before you die. But you will die anyways. So you might as well live. And you might as well love. You might as well love. You might as well love. And for some reason, a wonderful rabbi in New York died this week, and I was looking at his wife's Facebook page, and she had posted that a couple weeks ago, and it just was such a beautiful, beautiful reminder of what life is really all about. And I thought of Bert, and I printed it out and I grabbed it today. So may he rest in peace. The Hebrew word for funeral is levaya, which means to accompany. And so you've accompanied him here, whether you're here in person or not. And so those who are here in person have one additional responsibility, and that is to place 3 shovelfuls of earth into the grave. We begin the burial process ourselves by giving back to someone who gave to us. And so I invite the family to come forward, to come to either side of the grave, and begin the burial process. Use the small shovels. Place the shovel back into the earth when you're done, as we do not pass our grief from person to person. Each person acknowledges their grief in their own way.
This is for Paul.
Do an extra for your brother.
Oh yeah, do. Here.
Laura.
Friends, this concludes the service. You may go return to your cars.
Dad taught us how to shovel.
Amakom Yenachem et Pampatochar Avilat Zion for Yerushalayim. May God comfort you among all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Amakom Yenachem et Pampatochar Avilat Zion for Yerushalayim. Go your way, for God has called you. Go your way, and may God be with you. May your righteousness go before you, and the glory of God receive you.
Before we've had as many as 20 people. What I usually do now is I flip it around like this, and if you two,
Friends, this concludes the live stream. This concludes the service.
if you just want to
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Paul, I shoveled for you, and Laura, I shoveled for you. So that we laid Grandpa.
Drewy, are you out there? I love you, Drew. Paul, I'm so sorry. All our friends and family that are watching. Thank you.
His birthday was 23rd.